Hello everybody, it's AJ back again with the mighty Gluestick, the TMG channel. Hello, thanks for joining me. This is another midweek, almost end of the week for me, update, and I'm going to be breaking from the mold and skipping ahead to something I wanted to do later on after I've finished all of the monsters in the 5th edition monster manual. I was going to start going over some of the creatures from yesteryear or other sources. And I figured that by the time I finally got to the end of the monster manual, they'd probably come out with a second monster manual, or there'd be additional monsters that I could cover for this latest edition of the game. But, well, I just got interested in this one particular creature. It's from the Fiend Folio, and it's called the Gorbel. Now, the Gorbel is a small aberration, and it's a really bizarre little critter. And I thought it'd be fun to show you. There's not a lot of artwork on it. It's not really well known. A few people who have used them in their games generally have very fond memories of these things. And there's not a lot of artwork, so I've sculpted a few sculptures. Here's the miniatures that I've sculpted, and one that I've done in particularly finer detail with the shading and things, which I'll be focusing on as I talk about it. So you won't find any 5th edition stats on this thing. So I'm just going to basically give you a rundown of what it is and what it does. So it's a globe creature, approximately 3 feet in diameter, and it's a reddish skin tone that's thin and tough and rubbery, like a membrane of a thick balloon. And its body is highly elastic, and it's filled near to bursting with a lighter than air flammable gas, highly flammable gas, that is, it smells of rotten eggs, sulfurous, and it's got these 6 retractable eye stalks that, with little red or reddish eyes, irises, that it can pop them out from the top and look all around it. So it's got pretty good perception, with a +7 on its perception checks. And it's got a natural ability to hover and fly around slowly, and it can run around on its 2 stubby little legs that it's got on the bottom as well. Its main form of attack is its ripping and shredding claws, and it's got a special, it's pretty much a one-trick pony in regards to its attacking. What it does is it tries to leap onto a creature, sink its extendable retractable claws into the creature, and then start shredding and pulping the creature and shoving it into its little mouth. And the mouth has got this ring of multiple rows of teeth, like a lamprey, that all focus. They face back into the mouth so that it grabs hold of the creature and rips and shreds and shovels food into it, with little chance of pulling this thing off. It's almost impossible to pull this thing off you unless it's dead. And it's got a it's a fairly weak creature. Its physical statistics are fairly laughable. It's got a strength of 12. It's got a fairly good dexterity of 14. Its constitution is 12. It's not very intelligent. It has an intelligence of 7 or 8, wisdom of 8 or 9, and a charisma of 6 or 7. It does understand language. And it can speak whatever language is dominant in its area, but it can only sort of communicate 1 or 2 words in broken common. Its natural behavior amongst themselves are mischievous and quirky. If you observe them out amongst themselves, they operate like a herd, and they are ravenous. Whatever it is that drives their metabolism to create this gas that fills them requires a lot of eating, and they tend to eat a lot. One other thing is they have no other orifices in their body apart from that mouth opening. So it functions as their mouth, a sphincter to get rid of waste. They give birth through it, and they breathe through it if indeed they breathe normally. They do seem to breathe or need oxygen of some kind. The other trait of their body is it's immune to blunt damage. They can bounce around and be impacted with almost amazing amounts of force. And as long as it doesn't penetrate their skin with a slashing or a piercing attack, they are fine. They just shrug it off. They can be pounded by boulders or thumped with hammers or cudgels to your heart's content, and they'll just shrug it off with no ill effects at all. However, any magical attack or explosive attack or acid attack or piercing arrow or polearm or spear or sword or blade or slashing attack that breaks that skin can be disastrous, for exposure to the air causes these things to explode, and they are not immune to the explosions of their fellow Gorbels. So an entire herd of these things can go off with thundering explosions that damage everything in a 5-foot radius around them. So the square that they're in and the squares around them they'll explode outwards and damage everything around them. And if there's a large group of them, this can be quite devastating. It's like a large area attack that explodes. So when they leap on you, they also lose their ability to maneuver around with their legs. So their armor class, which is mostly boosted with their dexterity, is lessened somewhat. So normally they'll have an armor class which is fairly high because they're quite small. And it's about, you could say, 14 or 15 for their armor class, but when they grab hold of somebody, it drops down to about 10 or so. And this means that it's very tempting to attack them when they're latched onto somebody. But of course, if you do that and they explode, you're going to damage the person that they're holding on to. Of course, big, strong, tough adventurers aren't going to suffer greatly because the explosive damage is only about 1d6, and their claw attacks are only about 1d4. But when they are grabbed hold of you and clawing away, that damage increases to 1d6. And the idea of using Gorbels is to swarm them across you. So you'd never really encounter one Gorbel. You might do briefly, but a group of 10 or 20 or 30 Gorbels can be a fairly daunting enemy to face because they swarm at you and grab hold of you, and they're almost impossible to get off. I would suggest that you give them the Kobold's ability of pack tactics, so that if Gorbel has another Gorbel ally adjacent to it, it has advantage on all of its attack rolls. And yeah, they primarily attack with their claws, but they can bite as well, and I would say that they do a lesser amount of 1d4 damage. But you could add that on as an automatic attack, so they don't have to roll. If they've latched onto you, they don't have to roll to attack you. They just automatically inflict damage every single round. They can swallow smaller creatures, small or smaller opponents, whole on a successful grapple check if they've grabbed hold of them. And the swallow creature will take 1d8 points of crushing damage and 4 points of acid damage if it's inside the Gorbel's gut. And the swallowed creature also has to, well, its only way of getting out is to slash its way out of the gizzard of this thing. And the gizzard is very tough with an armor class of about 18. And of course, as soon as you slash through the Gorbel, it's going to explode, and you're going to suffer that same explosive damage. But you will be free. The exploding damage, it's very hard to avoid it if you're in range of it, and they can float around, so they are naturally buoyant, and this allows them to fly as a free action, and they're fairly swift if they're catching the wind and moving along, and they can move in it really depends on how fast the wind is going, and they travel in that direction. Otherwise, they just sort of bob along at 30 feet. And if they're forced to crawl around, they only move about 5 feet per round because of their ponderous sort of nature. It's hard to get a grip if you're you're essentially a bouncy balloon. So yeah, they're weird creatures. They are said to be distantly related to beholders, but they generally have a lack of magical ability, and their buoyancy is quite different from a beholder, so I think that's probably wishful thinking. They're most likely one of those fun creations of mad mad mages who experiment with biology and bring you such weird and wondrous creatures as you would you find some really weird critters out there, such as the squirmer, the squirrel puma, and the rhinoala, the rhino koala, or my absolute favorite, of course, which is the the cross between an eagle and a well, look at it, isn't it? That's just a majestic creature. I'll leave that with you, and I'll be back with some more serious creatures later on. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like this video and you'd like to see some more of the weirder and more wondrous creatures from the Fiend Folio brought into the modern edition of the rules, let me know, and I'll do my best. Thanks for listening.